Hi everyone, it's Kathleen at Crafts by Kathleen. It's what is today? Tuesday, January, not February, not quite yet. January 28th, and a couple of things I want to go over. First things first, tomorrow we're having a pop-up card class. 1:30 Wednesday, the 29th of January at 1:30, like I said. And we're going to be making a shadow box card. Have you ever done these? It's a shadow box card. So it's a $5 class. It's sort of like the kit classes. This will all be cut out for you. You come in and you're going to put the card together. I've got all the instructions with it. And then there'll be kits available as well. So it's tomorrow at 1:30, and I still have about 8 seats left. So we've got, looks like 7 or 8 people coming so far. All right, second thing is I wanted to go over our trimmers. I have noticed that we've gotten a lot of new people. Thank you, dear Lord. And a lot of people have a little bit of a hard time using the trimmers, okay, finding the different marks and things like that. So I kind of want to go over some of the trimmers. We have at the shop various different trimmers for people to use so that if they're used to something at home. And I always say, before we start a class, grab a trimmer that you're comfortable working with. The reason I say that is when we get started into the class, we need time to actually do the class and not time, there's really not time for us to do like a tutorial on how to use the trimmer you picked up. All right, so we have a Fiskars trimmer here. We have our We Are Memory Keepers trimmers, and we have quite a few different ones. This is one of them. We have Guillotine We Are Memory Keepers trimmers. We have the Mac Daddy one. We call it the Mac Daddy because of the big blade that's on it, but it's got really nice big clear numbers on it. We have, for our Stampin' Up people, we have quite a few of the Stampin' Up trimmers. We have Cricut trimmers. Okay, we have Tim Holtz trimmers. Okay, and then we just got in, these are the newer style We Are Memory Keepers trimmers. So after we go over this, I'm going to open this up. I want to try it out because it's really cool. It's got, let's see here. It's got a Stampin' Press magnet so that you can do things like a stamping platform. It's got a tab maker, a scoreboard, of course, an envelope maker, a tag maker, and a banner maker. All of that in this. So I want to open it up and kind of play with it. Hopefully we'll have time. If we don't have time, it'll be another video. But what I want to talk about is the measurements, okay? So I'm going to hold these up kind of close so I can show you the differences in the way the numbers. Now I really wish, let's see here. They used to have on here a little wrench so I can turn the way that the camera is filming, and I have not found that again since they've redone the different things. Yeah, it's not on there. Okay, so we're going to do the best we can, okay? So I'm going to hold this close to the camera, all right? And I'm going to show you on this one, this is the Cricut one, they only have the whole numbers marked, okay? So you can see this is 2. Now you know that that big line in the center is a half. You know that in between there are quarters. And if you don't know, but that's where the quarters are in the 3/4, okay? So those lines on here you can make out. However, see those little tiny lines down there? Sometimes we use those. A lot of times I use 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, and 7/8, okay? They're the marks that are in between these bigger lines, okay? And I usually say, let's go to the 2 1/8. It's the mark between 2 and 2 1/4. So here's your 2, here's your 2 1/4. So I'm talking about that mark right there in the middle, not the itty bitty tiny ones that are on these sides of those, but that mark right there, that's the 2 1/8, okay? So it's between the 2 and 2 1/4. Those itty bitty tiny ones that are next to the 2 1/8, that's 1/16 and 3/16, okay? So I rarely ever use a 16th. 2 1/8 is probably more common than any other one because I use that a lot if we're doing gatefolds. And when you're using an A2 card and you're going to do a gatefold, we all know our A2 cards are 5 1/2 and 4 1/4. That's the finished outline of it. Well, when we do 4 1/4 to make a gatefold, that 4 1/4 is really in the center of the card. So those two ends need to equal 4 1/4 because 8 1/2 divided by 2 is 4 1/4. We want a 4 1/4 in the center, so we need the two ends to equal 4 1/4. So 4 1/4 divided by 2 is 2 1/8. So that 8th mark, that 2 1/8, is very important. So again, you've got your whole mark, your whole number mark, and then you've got your quarter, and that line right there, that's 2 1/8, okay? So that's an important one. Now let's look here on the Stampin' Up! One. The Stampin' Up! One also only has the whole numbers marked. Now, one thing about the Stampin' Up! One is it's not marked at the top. Neither's the Cricut. However, the We Are Memory Keepers, the numbers are up here so that when the paper's covering it, let me get a piece of cardstock here. When the paper is on the trimmer for the Cricut trimmer and for your Stampin' Up! Trimmer, you can't see the numbers, okay? So the We Are Memory Keeper ones, which will be the next one I show you, you can see the numbers. But here, again, you've got the whole numbers, all right? So here's your, is that 2? Yeah, that's your 2. So you've got 2, and then here's your 3. And then if you're looking for your 8s, you've got to go in between here, all right? So you've got your 2 1/4 and your 2 1/8 is right in the center of 2 1/4 and 2. So if we're looking to cut something at 5 3/8, you're going to find your 5, and I'll usually say to you 5 3/8 is between 5 1/4 and 5 1/2. So you're going to find your 5, okay? You're going to go over to 5 1/4 and 5 1/2, and right in the middle is 5 3/8. It's not marked as 5 3/8, but the lines are there. So if you have a hard time reading your trimmer, try out some other trimmers. Like I said, here at the shop, we've got various different trimmers. But not everybody's going to be comfortable with the exact same trimmer. So that's those two. Now over here with the We Are Memory Keepers ones, you got nice big numbers on here, but also one, when you have your paper, in here, you can still see your numbers, all right? So you can still see the numbers, and it also has your whole number, your quarter number, and your half number, and of course your 3/4 number. So you've got those in there, but you don't have your 8ths in there. However, it's a lot easier to see, okay, here's 2, here's 2 1/4, so my 2 1/8 is that mark right here in between. Okay? And then Hold on a sec. I'm doing a live video for Facebook. That's okay.
Oh, good night.
You too, hon.
Tell the dog I said hi.
I will. Everybody likes to come in and check on Rocky and Rosie, and that's their little buddy that always comes in, but they're not here today. All right, so back to this. So where your marks are on here, you do have your quarters, your halves, of course your whole numbers, and your 3/4. So unlike the first two that I showed you, the Cricut and the Stampin' Up, you can see the numbers even though the paper's in here. It's not covering them. Remember, their numbers were down here. But it also has your quarters and your halves. So if you're somebody that's not really good and comfortable using your quarters and your halves and all like that, this is great for you. This is also good if you can get used to knowing where your 8ths are. So when I say we're going to cut it at 5 3/8, you know that you can go to 5, and I'll say to you now 5 3/8 is between 5 1/4 and 5 1/2. So you'll go to your 5 1/4 and your 5 1/2 and know that that line right in between them, right smack between 5 1/4 and 5 1/2 is your 5 3/8. Okay, so this is what I called the Mac Daddy. This is the one with the big blade on it, and this is a titanium blade. It does last a little bit longer, and that's something with every single trimmer. Your blades don't last forever. They just have. I love the wheels, the trimmers that have the wheels, because they're self-sharpening. So I like to use those, and I also like the guillotine because it's self-sharpening and it gives you a nice clean cut. But all of your trimmers that have the replaceable blades down here that go up and down, they're going to wear out, and they do wear out quickly. I don't care if it's a Cricut, I don't care if it's Stampin' Up. We are memory keepers, Fiskars. One might last you 15-20 cuts more than the other one, but none of them are like, whoa, that really goes on forever. So again, we are memory keepers. Then we've got another We Are Memory Keepers. Now this one, not quite as large. The numbers aren't quite as large. So if you have a hard time seeing, that last one's probably a little bit better for you. But these have your whole number, your 8ths, your quarters, your halves, all the way down. So this one will show you exactly where 2 1/8 is. So here's your 2. And remember, 2 1/4 or 2 1/8 we've been talking about a lot because of the gatefold cards. So between 2 1/4 and 2 is your 2 1/8. Well, if you look, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's marked on there, 2 1/8. So if you have a really hard time following where your 8ths are, this is the board for you. Okay, because it tells you exactly where everything is. All right, now we've got the Fiskars trimmer. All right, this one, unlike the first two, unlike the Cricut and the Stampin' Up, when you put your paper in here, you can still see your numbers because they're up higher. All right. However, this only has the whole numbers marked, just like your Cricut and your Stampin' Up one. So your whole numbers, you have to know, okay, the whole number is 2, and then we're going to look for 2 1/8. However, it's much clearer on this one that 2 1/8 is right there between those two large lines. That's 2 1/8. Because 2 1/4 right in the middle is 2 1/8. So you can see that much better than what you can see on some of the other ones. It's a little bit clearer. However, they're not numbered up here. The only lines have the whole numbers. Okay. Now, with the guillotine cutter, the mini guillotine here from We Are Memory Keepers, they're all numbered. They're all numbered. Also, the little blocks here, that's 1/4 inch. Now on the Fiskars, your Stampin' Up, and your Cricut, all of them all have the lines. Now on your 2VR Memory Keeper ones, they're also scoreboards, so they have a score every 1/8 of a line. So every 1/8 of an inch is a score line. It's a little bit harder to follow than the rest of them where they're 1/4 of an inch. But the guillotine, you can only cut the 8.5 side of your paper. You can't go in with your 11 because it's too long, okay? So you can't cut all your papers with this. However, if after you get your papers down, and if you're just working with A2 cards, this still works really good, unless you're going to cut it at 4 1/4 by 11. Then you still have to use a larger trimmer. But this does have the nice marks up at the top. All right, so let's go over what all of our marks are. Now, I grabbed a piece of red paper because I thought you'd be able to see pretty good on here. But I have, you know what? Yeah, I do have some white cardstock here. I want to go over just the basic math for your inches here. So we've got our ruler, and I'm even going to put our 8ths on here. Okay, so this is 1/8, this is 3/8, 5/8, and 7/8. This is 3/4. We're at 3/8. Okay. So this is our ruler. So this is our first whole number. We're going to call it 0. Then we've got 1 inch. So we know that that long thing is the full inch. Over here we've got the half. So this is right in the middle. So 0 to a half. That's a half. And the 1/4. The way your 8ths go is 1/8, 3/8. It's odd numbers and every other. So 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, and 7/8. Okay? So the higher that first number, when I say an 8, the further away from the whole number you're going to go. So if I say 6 and 7/8, you're going to go to that 6 mark, and you know that 7/8 is going to be further away than 3/8. So you know that you're going to be looking, and 7/8 is almost to that next number. And I will say, we're going to go to 6 and 7/8. That's the mark between 6 3/4 and 7. So you'll know that between your, let's say this is the 6 and this is the 7, you're going to go to that 6 and 3/4, and here's your 7. So there's your 7/8. Okay? So I know that it's a little bit frustrating for people. And I know that people are always saying to me, oh, why do you have to use the 8ths and stuff? Well, one, some of the folds are going to call for an 8. And two, when we're doing matting, those thin mats make a much nicer presentation than the thicker mats, in my opinion. So that's why I like to do a lot of the double and triple matting. So if you have a picture or a card front, anything that you're going to be matting, you're going to have to break it down into 8ths if you want those thinner mats. So when you're doing your 4" by 5 1/4 card front, and you want to mat it out, you know that you're going to have to go to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then you go to the 4 1/4 is the edge, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So if you want a nice thin mat around something that's already measuring 4 by 5 1/4, you're going to have to use those 8ths. I know it's not everybody's favorite, but I'm here to help you get through it. Your scoreboards or your trimmers, they tell you where they are. The rulers are there. The rulers are all there. So make sure you're paying attention to them. Okay, so that's the top part of your trimmers. Let's talk about the rest of your trimmer. I know, again, we have a lot of new people, and trimmers aren't necessarily something that they've been working with, and we want to make sure that they're comfortable with them. We get brand new paper crafters in the store all the time, and the best way to run them off is for them to come to a class and be frustrated. So you'll notice some of our classes we have cut down the size of, because I want to be able to give you more one-on-one attention. I had a situation yesterday where I had a club and a class kind of run together, and I wasn't able, and I felt horrible, because I truly believe people are here to enjoy themselves, and if I'm not there to make it a little bit easier when you're doing a project, you might not enjoy yourself. So I want to give you my attention. So again, teaching you things about the trimmer isn't saying, okay, we got to go back to Paper Crafting 101. It's just saying, hey, there's a lot of new people, not everybody knows it, and I'll be able to instruct them to go to this video and say, oh, let me just go over the different trimmers and see which one it is I like and see what Kathleen has to say about it. All right, so the first thing I want to talk to you about is the parts of the trimmer. We went over the ruler, okay? Then we've got, this is what I call the cutting door, all right? The cutting door is where your blade travels up and down, all right? So this is the cutting door here on the Tim Holtz one. We've got a cutting door here on our Fiskars one. On our We Are Memory Keepers ones, there's cutting doors, and these even have magnets on them. So sometimes people think they're going to break them, but they're not. It's a magnet. You can see down here, see the little magnet? When it closes, that's what you hear why it slams like that, because of the magnet. This We Are Memory Keepers one, this slides up and down. This is the cutting door. It's on there. And there's probably a more technical term for it than a cutting door, but that's what I call it. This is the one on the Stampin' Up! Trimmer. And then here on our Cricut trimmer, we've got a cutting door. The cutting door is what holds your blades. Now on Stampin' Up! It also holds your scorer, because you score up and down the same way. So here's what holds your blade. Now your blade, your door has to be all the way down on all of these, on all of them, for your blade to cut. Now inside, see that deep line there? I call that the cutting gully, all right? That's what the blade travels up and down, and your paper has to be over that for it to cut. So if I'm telling you to cut something at 2 inches, you know that you're not going to put your edge here, because your cutting gully's here. How can you cut 2 inches over here if your cutting gully's here? And I know that sounds simple, but it happens. And the reason I believe that it happens is people get so nervous that they're going to do the wrong thing, that they're overcompensating for how they think it should work, okay? So if you have a question, just ask me. But the more you play with a trimmer that you are comfortable with, the more you're going to understand it, okay? So you want to make sure at 2 inches, the edge of your paper that's here still has paper coming over your cutting gully. So if I'm saying 2 inches, I'm not saying put your paper like this. You want to put this edge of your paper at your 2 inches, and then this way you're covering your cutting gully, and you know that your blade will slide up and down, okay? So that's your door and your cutting gully. Now, if you're going to be doing anything longer than, well, on this one it's 4 inches, there's an arm that comes out that stretches and goes all the way to, I want to say 16 inches on the Cricut one. All right. Over here with the Stampin' Up! One, you have an arm that comes out. And this goes to 17 inches. On your Tim Holtz one, you have 2 arms that come out, okay? You have one up here at the top and one down here at the bottom. So this board comes over to 6 inches, and then these go all the way out to 12 inches. I want to show you something though. On here, here's 6 inches, and then here's like 6 3/4 of an inch. Everything in between here, you kind of have to guess where it is. That's where this side comes in handy, okay? So from 0, where your cutting gully is, that's always going to be your 0 line. This also has marks over here telling you where 1 inch and 2 inches are. So if you're cutting something and you know that you have an 8.5 inch piece of paper and you need to cut it down to 6.5, okay? If you bring this to 2, 6.5 plus 2 is 8.5. So that tells you where that 6.5 inches is because you've got that 2 over here, all right? And that might not make sense to everybody, but if you do the math in your head, you'll understand. Those 2 inches that are over on that left-hand side, plus the 6.5 inches, even though you can't see that it's 6.5, would equal the 8.5, and you know that your paper's 8.5 inches. If you don't know what size your paper is, you measure it first and then you subtract it, okay? So if you end up with a paper that's 8 inches, you would want it at 6.5, so you know 6.5 plus 1.5, so you would bring it to that 1.5 mark over here. So that would give you some clarification on what's missing here. You've got numbers missing on all of these, okay? So your Stampin' Up! And your Cricut ones, if they have these arms that come out, there's going to be some numbers missing, okay? But they're the arms there. Now, on the We Are Memory Keepers ones, you don't have arms. These open all the way up to 12 inches. And the reason for that is these are score and trim boards. They score that's 1/4 of an inch. Every line across is an 1/8 of an inch. So all of those 1/8 of an inches are things that you may need to score on. So you've got your scoreboard here. So it opens all the way up to 12, okay? And you open it, and it's got these little locks here in the back. I don't like to see people keeping it closed like this and using it. It's not going to be stable, and it could rock, and that's going to make your cuts off. And then people say to me, "Oh, this is cut crooked. This is cut crooked." Okay, well, you didn't open your scoreboard. It wasn't level, and always lock it. Okay, and then when you're ready to put it away, you close it. Now to open this, it's usually on the side that your blade's on. You'll see little nubs, and you're just going to push them apart, and that's how you open it, okay? So that's the We Are Memory Keepers. Same thing on this We Are Memory Keepers. This is where your cutting door is. This here, I call this your score door. So if you're going to be scoring with this, you have to have it down. And I'll show you that in a minute. But here's your little nubs here, and it opens up, and then it's got little locks here so that it keeps it nice and sturdy and stable and straight. So it's locked. Now here on these, the issue is not that you're missing numbers up here, but right here where that seam is not in a score line. So you have to be really careful when you're scoring here at 6 3/8 and 6 1/2, not to get it in that little crease of your fold, okay? And then here on the Fiskars one, it's got the doors, and you'll notice here, they've got it really, really close. It's really good. It's one of the better ones as far as having your readable numbers in where your arm's going to come out. However, once you get this arm out, you can't see the numbers anymore. okay? So that's the downfall to this one. Even though you've got the numbers here, it makes it a little bit harder, okay? Because once your paper is there, the numbers are gone, all right? So each one of these trimmers have their pros and cons. I have my favorites. Other people have opposite favorites of what I have. None of them are wrong. It's all with your comfort level. If you're comfortable using a trimmer, keep using that. Learn all of its little tricks and stuff like that. And again, when you come and you take a class, make sure if you have a trimmer, bring your trimmer with you, because the more you use your trimmer, the one that you're comfortable with, the more you're going to know how to use it. But if you forgot your trimmer, or for some reason your bag wasn't big enough and you had to leave something home and the trimmer is what drew the short straw, that's fine. But when you come here, try to use a trimmer that's most like your trimmer, okay? So like I said, we've got the Tim Holtz trimmers, we've got Fiskars, we've got Cricut, we've got Stampin' Up! For our Stampin' Up! Ladies. We've got the We Are Memory Keepers and the various different ones. And the other thing is scoring with your trimmers. If you don't know how to score with your trimmers, I can always show you when you're here, but I'm going to give you a little tip. On the Stampin' Up! Trimmer, it's got a cutting blade and it's got a score blade. That score blade, all it's doing is running up and down in that cutting gully, and it's putting the mark in the paper. You're going to take your paper, your cardstock, and you're going to take it over to whatever size, wherever you want to score it. So if I want it scored at 2 inches, I'm going to slide my paper over to the 2-inch mark, and then I'm going to score it. Well, if you don't have one of those little score blades in there, like with the Fiskars, you only have the cut. I had it in there. You only have the cutting blade. So you're going to put your paper in there. We're going to put it over to the 2-inch mark because we want to score it at 2. And then I've got, here I can get this one out, I hope. Yeah. Then I've got these little bone folders in all of the little things on the tables. You just take a bone folder, you got this at 2, and you're just going to drag that down in your cutting gully. And it does the same exact thing as like with the Stampin' Up! Or even the Tim Holtz has a blade that does the scoring. I prefer to do it this way. I prefer doing it this way. And all you're doing is dragging that in there, and there you go. I don't know if you can see, but see the score line? It makes the score line just the same. With your We Are Memory Keepers, all right, you're going to want to open the cutting door. Make sure the blade is nowhere that you're going to put your hand on it, okay? And then you're going to take this scoring door and close that. What that's doing is giving a lip, an edge for your paper to be up against that 0 line, that last line where your blade's going to go up and down. It goes up to that so that when you want to score, you put your paper in and it stops it from sliding past 0, and then you go to your 2-inch mark and you just slide it right down, okay? So they're the 2 different ways that you can do your scoring. This is more like, when you're using this, it's more like using, Martha Stewart has a big scoreboard, a 12-inch scoreboard that looks similar to this, but it doesn't cut. You have those small, I think it's called Score Buddy or Score Pal. You have those small ones that have all these lines in it that you just do the scoring. Well, this is used the same way as they are. All right. So I hope I've answered some questions that have to do with scoreboards. Again, when you come in, if you're not quite sure how to use the scoreboard, maybe come a few minutes early and ask me to go over it. But don't come in and just grab a scoreboard that you've never used before and do a fun fold frenzy and think that you're just going to be able to fake it through, because they're kind of important. I think that they're probably the most important tool that you're going to use as far as paper crafting goes. That and of course mine would also be the finger blade and my very large bone folder. So I don't even have it in front of me here. I don't know where. Out there, it's all the way down there. So like I said, I hope that I answered some questions. Please don't be afraid to ask me questions about it, but in the middle of a fun fold frenzy is not the time to do it. So if you're brand new to paper crafting and you want to do some of these really fun classes, I want you to do them, but I don't want you to be frustrated. So say to me, you know, when you're signing up for it, hey, I'm going to do the Fun Fold Frenzy because I just love those St. Patty's Day cards, but I've never used a scoreboard before. Which really, if you've been to a Cards and Coffee, most of the Cards and Coffee, we use a scoreboard, trimmer of some sort. So you should have a little bit of knowledge, but I have no problem, you know, you coming in early and us going over how to use the one that you're most comfortable with and use it properly. All right. So I hope I've inspired you to open up a scoreboard and start cutting some cards or some 3D projects. And I'll see you here at the shop. I'll talk to y'all real soon. Bye-bye.